Election Yard here from the studios, and we're going to break down the 2025 Australian federal election and what an election it was. It was a little bit of the inverse of Canada, but we'll explain what that means in a minute. The final results are not yet determined, but if you look at the AEC website or any Australian major news source, there are varying seat counts. We go with what the AEC says. The outcome, however, is clear. Even though technically none of the seats are official, the result's very clear. It's a large Labor majority, perhaps the biggest majority they've ever won in history. Not sure we were expecting that, but nevertheless, that's the course that we're on. As of right now, according to the AEC, the ALP is at 86 seats, so that's 86 for Labor. The coalition at just 40. Others and independents, 12. The Greens as yet are at 0. 12 seats are still to be determined. As far as the primary vote right now, the Labor Party is at 34.8%. The coalition's at 32.2%. The Greens are at 11.8%. One Nation at 6.3%. The Trumpet of Patriots Party, this is Clive Palmer's party that pissed off a lot of people with the text messages, that's 1.9%. All others at 13%. So that's a primary vote for non-ALP, non-LNP parties of about 33%. So about a third of the electorate didn't vote for Labor or the coalition. That's a huge number, and that's even bigger than last time. Taking a look right now, the two-party preferred as of the time of this recording, it was about 54.7 for Labor, 45.3 for the coalition. So that's a rout. Of course, let's compare these numbers, the seat totals anyway, to 2022. Labor won 77 seats in 2022. You need 76, so it was a bare majority. And now they're at 86 and counting, probably going to go over 90. In terms of two-party preferred, in 2022, Labor was a little over 52%, and now they're close to 55%. So a pretty substantial swing to Labor. So now, what I said a minute ago, why do I say that this is the inverse of Canada? Well, the opinion polling in Canada suggested that the Liberal Party, led by Mark Carney, was going to win perhaps a thumping majority. They ended up with a minority government, even though it's a fairly strong one. Now, in Australia, the polls were suggesting that if Labor was lucky, they might win another narrow majority government, but there was a chance that they could fall into hung parliament status, minority government status. However, Labor won that thumping majority that Mark Carney might have liked to win a week early. However, just like in Canada, the opposition from the political right led in the polls at the start of 2025, but ended up losing the election. Donald Trump and the political reverberations from the United States were definitely a factor in this election. Beyond that, and I'm just going to keep things real here for a minute, that's what we do on this sleeveless election channel. Even when the coalition led in the polls for a little while, even in the earlier parts of this year, I never really believed that Peter Dutton was going to win a federal election. For one thing, one-term governments in Australia are very rare. The last time a government only served one term in Australia was about 100 years ago, and a little thing called the Great Depression was a definite factor in that. The other thing is when Peter Dutton was installed as the Liberal leader a couple of years ago, and I believe he ran unopposed, so it was his for the taking. One of the first things that the Liberal Party set out to do was try to remake his image because he was seen as being too stern or too extreme politically. So I remember when Dutton became the leader, they really made a point to try to show people a kinder, gentler side, maybe a more likable side. And if that's the first thing you got to do, you just elect a new leader, and the first thing you got to do is try to rehabilitate his image so that people might start to like him, you got issues. If that's the first thing that you're dealing with coming out of the gate with a new leader. So combine those two elements, and historically speaking, it was going to be an uphill battle for the coalition anyway. But especially since the campaign started, never at any point did I actually expect the coalition to win. The Teals just merely existing and taking some of their seats away just made their lives so much more difficult in 2022. Clearly, we can see they made their lives very difficult again in 2025. But even aside from that, just not a lot was going right for them. Anthony Albanese seemed to have the momentum in the campaign. The odds of a coalition majority win were just exceedingly slim right out of the gate. For me, the only real question was whether Labor was going to win a majority government or a minority government. I was thinking majority government. Clearly, I don't think I was expecting this, and I don't think a lot of people in Australia were expecting the landslide that we ended up getting. Now, the coalition made other missteps as well, but we will get to that. Let's first go through the results that we had. Again, these are the AEC results as of the time we made this recording, which is in Australian time on May 6th. In New South Wales, the Labor Party has won 27 seats. The Liberal National Coalition has won 11. Of them, 6 of them are Nationals, and only 5 Liberals have won in New South Wales. That's astonishing. David Coleman, the Liberal, he's lost in Banks. Another interesting result, Andrew Gee, the Independent in Calare, has won that seat. He was a National. He left the National Party, but he's held on as an independent. And as for the two-party preferred split, we have it right at the bottom of the screen. As of the time we made this video, Labor was at 55.5%. So a very, very good showing for them in New South Wales. And it was actually slightly worse in Victoria. However, the seat totals really tell the story. It was 25 for Labor, 7 for the coalition. And again, this is another state. The Nationals have 4. The Liberals have only won 3 seats in the entire state. And there's 2 others. 4 seats still in doubt, but you notice that Green is still a 0 because Adam Bant, the Green Party leader, he's still trailing in Melbourne. Other results, Michael Sucker lost in Deakin. That's a big loss for the Liberals there. There are some positives. It looks like the National Party might flip Bendigo. The Liberals, Tim Wilson, might win back Goldstein. But other than that, I mean, look at that count next to me. Labor's at 25 seats in Victoria. So it's been pretty desperate for the coalition down there. Now, off to Queensland. Very, very interesting. Queensland, you can see the two-party preferred at 50.5 for the coalition. This is the only state in the entire country where the coalition has the better of the two-party preferred vote. And also in terms of seats, the LNP there is at 16. Labor's at 10, others at 1. 3 seats still in doubt, 0 Greens so far. Some very, very interesting results. None more interesting than the fact that Peter Dutton, the Liberal leader, lost his seat. And frankly, it wasn't even close if you look at the numbers. But other really tough losses for the coalition here. Ross Vasta lost in Bonner. Bert Van Manen lost his seat. Luke Howarth lost in Petrie. I don't think I saw that coming at all. And then you also have Labor flipping Leichhardt up in the north. Warren Entsch retired, and that seat went Labor as soon as he left. As for the Green Party, some really difficult results in Queensland. They had won Brisbane in 2022. It looks like they're going to come in 3rd place here. So they've lost that seat. It looks like Max Chandler Mather has lost in Griffith to Labor. They might end up holding 1 seat up there, but it's too soon to tell. Over to Western Australia and WA, it's 9 Labor seats, 4 for the coalition, 2 others, 1 in doubt. Labor has flipped more from the coalition. Bullwinkle is close. It looks like Labor might pull that one out, but it's very, very close. Fremantle actually might flip from Labor to Independent. And speaking of independents, Kate Cheney, the Independent in Curtin, that was a blue ribbon Liberal seat. She is holding on to that seat as an independent. Down to South Australia now, 7 Labor, 2 LNP, 1 other, that's the Centre Alliance, Rebecca Sharkey. The notable result here in South Australia, other than look at the two-party preferred, it's almost 60% to Labor. I mean, that's That is an ass whooping right there. James Stephens, the Liberal in Sturt, has lost that seat to Labor. This was Chris Pine's seat. The last time Labor had won here before 2025, it was in the 70s. So flipping a really, really stalwart Liberal seat to Labor, and that just really kind of tells the tale of this election. And then down to Tasmania, it was basically just as bad. 59-41 two-party preferred in favor of Labor. Before this election, I was kind of wondering, would the Liberals hold on to Bass and Braddon and then maybe add Lyons to the pile? Well, not only did they not add Lyons to the pile, they lost Bass and Braddon. And not only did they lose Bass and Braddon, they lost them on gigantic swings. I think the swing in Braddon was about 15% from Liberal to Labor, and it was about 10 in Bass. So just gigantic swings against the coalition in Tasmania. And you can see how that turned out. They won no seats. You've got the independent Andrew Wilkie still winning his seat. But other than that, it was Labor red across the island. One seat, according to the ABC, is still in doubt, but the AEC does not think it's in doubt. Moving on, we're going to look at the Australian Capital Territory. 3 seats here. 2 are in the bank for Labor. There's 1 still hanging out there. That's the seat of Bean. The independents could actually win that one away from Labor. Labor seems to be in the lead at the moment, but it's going to be very, very close. And then finally in the Northern Territory, 2 seats, both of them staying with Labor. There actually so far has been a tiny swing to the coalition here, but it's still 55-45 two-party preferred in favor of Labor. So now let's talk about the campaign. Labor stayed on message throughout the whole thing, and Anthony Albanese presented himself as an agent of steadiness. Even though, there have been some bumps along the way for the Labor government over the last few years. Cost of living has been an issue, not just in Australia, but in other Western countries like the United States and like Canada. And then you also had the voice referendum a few years ago, which did not go well for the government. It was clearly a fumble. Labor obviously has recovered from that. And I think it would be fair to say that Peter Dutton and the coalition, whom after that referendum were feeling very vindicated, did not capitalize on it at all. I think, just speaking frankly, it would also be fair to say that the coalition ran a bad campaign in 2025. I personally think they were going to lose anyway, for the reasons that I cited earlier in this video, but the coalition campaign, what they did was the difference between quote-unquote respectable loss similar to 2022 and what we just saw, which is an historic blowout. The coalition really went all in on, frankly, some lousy policies which did not resonate. Some of them emulated Donald Trump's policies in the United States. After all, one of Dutton's planks was bringing on Doge-style cuts to the public sector. And he wanted to end work from home for some Australians and had to tuck his tail between his legs and backtrack on that policy because of the backlash. But, also got into some culture war stuff. And hell, one Liberal senator even said, make Australia great again. So you add that all up, and I think you would have to say the coalition definitely turned some people off. Now, as for Labor, it is undeniable. They have been given a huge mandate. They must now deliver. Their Labor counterparts in the United Kingdom were also given a huge mandate, and the speed at which they have squandered that is actually quite impressive. Albanese's Labor Party does not want to do the same thing. He knows he has to make good on his promises. As for the coalition, this is tough territory. Their bench is thin. It is getting thinner. They could be left, in terms of seats, in the low to mid 40s. And not only that, you look at the Liberal Party, the once proud Liberal Party. Right now, they're at 14 seats that they have won on their own. The LNP is at 16. The Nationals are at 10. And the Nationals are going to want a bigger slice of the pie in this coalition coming ahead. But when you look at it, even if generously you give the coalition 45 seats coming out of this election, They're so far out of the picture right now, they would have to turn things around massively in the next 3 years to even have a chance at winning the next election in 2028. They would need some sort of a massive rebrand in a short time when they have no leader. And frankly, at this point, I'm not even sure why anyone would want that poison chalice. I'm sure someone's going to have to be the leader at some point. Someone's going to have to take one for the team. But it's going to be tough. You look at it, and the coalition could realistically be 6 years away. That's 2 elections from forming government again. But I want to be cautious and say that even though Labor has just won this huge majority, anything can still happen. The coalition is not guaranteed to lose in 2028 because it's too far away and we just can't say that yet. But I really do think when you're in a position like this, you have to gain 25 to 30 seats to have a realistic chance of forming a government. Their best chance is probably Labor imploding in the next 3 years. If that doesn't happen, then yeah, they're probably screwed. And yes, the Liberal Party is very much in shambles right now. They have a lot of work to do between now and 2028 to give themselves any chance whatsoever. And if that doesn't pan out, I mean, they could be looking at 2031 before the next time they're even in position to win another election. But we will see. There's no guarantee that Labor will win the next election, but they got to be feeling pretty good about their long-term prospects with this many seats. All right, before we wrap up this Australian election wrap video, I just want to say we are going to salute the one, the only, the great Antony Green. He is retiring from ABC election coverage. Here, even in the United States, I am very much familiar with his work. I have been following him for many, many years. He has helped guide me through many Australian elections, both at the federal and the state level. He is Australia's Steve Kornacki, and he was Australia's Steve Kornacki before Steve Kornacki was Steve Kornacki. He is the GOAT, the greatest of all time, and he will be very much missed. For more election coverage in Australia, in Canada, in the United States, in anywhere, go to electionyard.com, follow us on Blue Sky, and subscribe to this YouTube channel.